Okay, so we get that. We see the people we're supposed to be helping. We know. We're internally wired to know that we need to help them. So my next point, where we're going with this, is why. Why is James telling us go help them? Is it because they need to be fed? Well, maybe. But I don't think that's really what he's getting at. There's something more. There's a transformation of attitude when you go and you visit these people, and then you get down right in the muck and the grime with them, and you get your hands dirty in their affliction, which is what James is saying. He's saying, be there with them and suffer with them. Well, the reason for that is because it transforms you. See, in the Old Testament, God had provided a provision for the widows and orphans. He said, if you're a landowner, you've got a vineyard or you've got an orchard, maybe you've got a big farm, when you go through and you get all your crop, there's going to be a little left over. Lisa and I just went through our peach tree. There were some little ones. You don't want to pick them because they're kind of gross. They're going to get a little bigger. So we went through once, and some other people went through with us, and they cleaned all those peaches off, but a few were left behind. Well, the provision in the Old Testament, in the law, God said, go through your field once. Go through your orchard or your vineyard once. Then leave that stuff that's left behind for the widows to come through and glean, have something to eat. It's a provision for them. And so God's way of saying, look, you need to think about what you have. I gave you your orchard, and I want you to give me your first fruits. Go ahead and take your stuff, and then leave the last for these less fortunate folks. But here's the interesting thing. There's a little bit of a transformation there, because you realize this isn't my orchard, it's God's orchard, and He's told me to do this. But you can do this. You can say, ooh, there come those poor ladies coming to get the stuff. I'll be over here doing my thing. I don't really want to see. I don't really want to know. Go ahead and clean out my field. I could have made a little more money on that, but go ahead and take it. So then Jesus comes on the scene. He says, yeah, that law's good. It's a good law to care for them. But I'm going to take it one step further. Jesus says you need to get down with them. You need to be there with them. It's kind of hard to turn your back when you're sitting right next to them and you're in their affliction and you're suffering with them. Jesus says, go and be transformed. Go and be transformed. Have a radical transformation. I've realized when you, and I haven't been to one of these places, but I've been to a lot of them very similar in Iraq. If you go to a big garbage heap in Mexico, and you see people living on a garbage heap, and getting their food from the garbage heap, and then you come home, is it a little easier to be thankful to God for what you have? Suddenly you realize, boy, I do owe a lot of things. When you go downtown and you see the panhandler on the street, is it a little easier to say, I'm lucky? Well, it gets even easier when you sit next to them and you learn their name and you hear their story. So not only are you learning thankfulness, you're learning the compassion that God has called us to. So you're being opened up, you're kind of being worked on to see how God sees people, to see the compassion. And so we see this radical transformation. But there's one more thing. See, Jesus is speaking to a group of people in Matthew 25, starting in verse 35. I'm reading from the ESV. It's not critical that you are by any means, but just so you know what I've got. He's talking about the judgment in the last days. It's the final judgment. He's got these two groups of people, and one of these groups is all the folks going to heaven. It's the righteous. And this is what he says to them. He says, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me." And see, then the righteous look up and they say, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you? Or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." So it's not just about a radical transformation. It's about getting close to Jesus. See that latchkey kid? Coming home, doing his thing? That's Jesus. Think about that. The guy on the street that I walked past? There's Jesus. The girl on the line trying to figure out her food stamp thing? You're getting frustrated with her? There's Jesus. Jesus is saying, come close to me, because here I am right here. You can be right here. You can sit with me in the affliction. Come be close to me. Come be close to me. So, we can see who these orphans and widows are. And we hopefully can recognize that we can come close to them and be transformed. But now the question is how? How are we going to do this? And that's where a lot of times we leave on Sunday, we take off and we think, well, I could go feed the homeless or I could watch some football or whatever. I want to go through just a few tips to help you get a little closer to Jesus, if you want to. I mean, just if you want to. First of all, and this brings me to my third point, James knew you were going to feel the way you feel right now. Well, what do I do? It's uncomfortable. Because James said, don't allow yourself to be stained by this world. What's he talking about? What is James getting at? How does the world treat the homeless? How does the world treat the woman on food stamps? They say, oh, she should be working. She should do something. How about the homeless guy? Oh, he just wants drugs. That's all he wants. He's lazy. He just wants some drugs. There's Jesus. He just wants drugs. I'm not going to help him. What about the latchkey kid? He'll grow up. He's tough. Everybody gets through it. The world has a whole system. Or if they're not like that, they say, oh, I have an idea. Let's join Bono's One campaign. Let's give some money. Let's not have to look at them. Let's do this. Here's some money. Go do your thing. I don't want to know about it. Go. I feel better about myself. I don't want to feel guilty because I gave you some money. Let's have a charity golf tournament. Let's buy Saints coffee. Now, I love Saints coffee. I love Saints coffee. And I love that they help feed orphans. Or the same coffee group that came here to the church a while back. But you know what? It's no substitute. That's how the world thinks. Here's some of my money. And you should be giving your money to that. Because it's not even your money. It's like the field. You're going to give a little bit of that last to the people who are less fortunate. But that's not the substitute for transformation. And I promise you, you're not going to find transformation simply by supporting somebody overseas where you write a letter to them once every 6 weeks and you give them $20. You're not going to find Jesus in that very easily. And you're not going to have the kind of transformation that James is calling you to have. So first of all, you cannot be stained by the world. Now second, and this is really important, I want to make this very, very clear. Feeding the homeless, caring for the people in the lowest rung, going down to Pioneer Park and giving them muffins and coffee and maybe praying with them and sharing the gospel and doing all kinds of stuff is not going to get you any closer to salvation than you can be right now. Salvation is purely through grace. This has nothing to do with salvation. Zero. This has everything to do with your walk with Jesus. It has everything to do with your transformation. So you can stay over here and you can be saved and that's great and you can be comfortable, or you can work towards becoming the masterpiece that God has created you to be. You can become more, a lot more. And that's what He's called you to. So let's talk real quick about just a couple things. You got to get into ministry of some kind. And people go, oh, hey buddy, what's up? How you doing? How are you? Hey, here's your mommy. There's a ministry right there, helping the little kids. You got to get into ministry. That ministry can be anything. And we put such heavy burdens on what ministry might be. Oh, I can't go down and work at the rescue mission. I've got a job, and I've got this, and I've got that, and oh, this ministry and that ministry. Mark 9:41, Jesus says, if you can give someone a cup of water in my name, you've done ministry. It's that simple. Who here cannot give somebody a cup of water? I mean, really, that's pretty simple. You probably do it all the time when you have guests in company. Now, the question, though, is doing it in my name. How does that work? Now, and when I started in some other classes and I was working on some evangelism stuff and I was meeting with the transient population downtown, I would go down and I'd be like, hey, how you doing? Can I help you out? Hey, I want to pray with you in Jesus' name. And they're like looking at me like I'm a crazy weirdo. Here's a cup of water in the name of Jesus. Here you go. You know, oh. So